The security guard's hand was already in Patricia's purse when the hotel director walked in, searching for proof she'd stolen champagne from guests who'd spent the last hour mocking her claim that Robert Bailey was her boyfriend. But when they pulled out her employee ID, something was wrong. The name didn't match the termination records, the photo was 7 years old, and outside, through the lobby's glass doors, a private jet was landing with 4 men in black suits descending the stairs. The director went pale. Because the billionaire whose name she just claimed wasn't coming to defend her, he was coming to buy the entire hotel. And he'd timed it to the exact moment they decided to humiliate her. My name is Patricia, and this is the story of how I went from being the forgotten waitress thrown out with nothing but a box of memories to standing in front of television cameras while that same billionaire announced he'd bought the hotel where I once scrubbed floors, and he did it for me. But before I tell you how I got here, let me ask you something. How's your day going? Where are you watching this from? I hope wherever you are, you're somewhere that feels like you matter. Because mattering, feeling like you belong, is something I spent most of my life chasing. If you're someone who's ever felt invisible, someone who's been laughed at for daring to dream beyond your circumstances, someone who's been told that people like you don't get to sit at tables like that, then this story is for you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, because what happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about worth, power, and what happens when the person who broke you comes back to put the pieces together. But let me start from the beginning, back when I still believed that hard work and honesty were enough to earn your place in a world built for people who never had to earn anything. Welcome back, my strong family and friends, to Mr. Crown Stories. If no one told you today, hear this: your voice matters, even when they try to silence it. Your truth matters, even when they mock it. You are the dignity they couldn't take, the strength they couldn't break, the dream they couldn't kill. I make these stories for hearts like yours, underestimated but undefeated, knocked down but never destroyed, laughed at but destined to rise. If this touches you, click subscribe, type "I kept my promise" in the comments, and tell me where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I'll share another story of justice delayed but never denied. Every word is for you, the one who rebuilt yourself when they said you were nothing. May your integrity outlast their cruelty, your resilience outshine their doubt, and your vindication silence every laugh that tried to make you small. Let's walk this road together, hand in hand, heart to heart. Now, let us begin. I was 19 years old when I first walked through the towering doors of the Royal Imperial Hotel. The building wasn't just a hotel, it was a monument to wealth, the kind of place where chandeliers cost more than houses and guests flew in on private jets just for afternoon tea. My mother had been a seamstress who worked 16-hour shifts. My father drove buses until his back gave out. I grew up learning that effort could buy survival, but it rarely bought respect. Still, I had dreams. I didn't just want to work in hospitality, I wanted to master it, maybe even run a place like this one day. People called me naive. My guidance counselor suggested community college and realistic expectations. But I'd gotten the job. Black and white uniform. Silver name tag. A locker in the basement that smelled like industrial cleaner and forgotten ambitions. Within 2 years, I was one of the best on staff, graceful, precise, the kind of server who anticipated needs before they were spoken. That's how I met Robert Bailey. He wasn't a billionaire then. Just the newly appointed regional director, a man with sharp eyes who noticed details everyone else missed. While other executives walked past staff like we were furniture, Robert saw people. He noticed when I corrected a booking error that would have cost the hotel thousands. He noticed when I stayed late to help train new hires. He noticed me when very few people did. Our friendship started small. Brief conversations about hotel operations. Shared coffees during late shifts when the lobby was empty. He asked my opinions. He told me I had something rare: integrity. "Don't lose that," he said one night. "This industry eats people alive. Integrity is rarer than gold here." Our relationship bloomed quietly, late-night talks about building something meaningful, shared dreams about hotels that treated staff like people, not props. For 11 months, I believed we were building a future where class didn't dictate worth. Then the whispers started. The board called it maintaining professional standards. What they meant was, girls like you don't date men like him. Not here. Not ever. Robert was being groomed for VP, youngest in company history. But it came with conditions. He needed to be unmarried, available, the kind of eligible bachelor who could charm investors' daughters at charity galas. I wasn't part of that picture. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I arrived for my shift to find an envelope in my locker. Inside, 2 sentences. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Please exit through the service entrance. No explanation. No severance. No goodbye. Robert found me in the parking garage 20 minutes later. I was sitting in my decade-old sedan, my entire life in a cardboard box. Patricia. His voice cracked. Did you know they were going to fire me? Silence. Did you know? I tried to stop it. I went to the board. But you didn't quit. I finally looked at him. You took the promotion. You stayed. I have responsibilities. Student loans. My mother's medical bills. You told me integrity was rarer than gold. My voice was hollow. Turns out, only mine had to be. I drove away that night with my cardboard box and the devastating knowledge that hard work and honesty and love weren't enough. Not for girls like me. Not in worlds like his. 5 years passed. Then 6. Then 7. I worked doubles at smaller hotels. Studied hospitality management at night. Built dignity brick by brick where nobody could take it. Meanwhile, Robert Bailey's face appeared everywhere. Magazine covers, financial news, the youngest billionaire in hospitality. I avoided every headline. Changed the channel when his name was mentioned. Then fate put an advertisement in my hands. The Royal Imperial Hotel, hiring temporary staff for exclusive investor summit. I stared at that ad for 3 days before I applied. Told myself I needed the money. Told myself I was over it. I was lying. On a Wednesday morning, I walked back through those doors wearing the same uniform I'd once wept into. Nobody recognized me. It happened during lunch service on day 3. 3 women in designer everything were gossiping about Robert Bailey, the billionaire rumored to be acquiring another property. Ever meet him? One asked me suddenly, eyes narrowing. I could have lied. Should have lied. Instead, something ancient and furious rose in my throat. Yes, I said quietly. That's my boyfriend. They laughed. All 3 of them. Heads thrown back, hands on chests. Sweetie, men like Robert Bailey don't date girls who serve drinks. They hire them. My cheeks burned. But before I could respond, the massive glass doors swung open. 4 men in black suits entered in perfect formation. Behind them, framed against afternoon light, walked Robert Bailey. The laughter died instantly. His eyes scanned the crowd until they found me. Everything stopped. Then he smiled, the real one I remembered from late-night coffees, and walked straight toward me. Patricia, he said softly. You kept your promise. What promise? To never let them make you small again. He turned to face the stunned crowd. I'm Robert Bailey. As of today, the Royal Imperial Hotel is under new ownership. The deal was finalized 1 hour ago. He pulled a sealed folder from his jacket. I bought it for her. For the woman this hotel fired without cause. The woman you laughed at. The woman who built her dignity from the ground you tried to bury her under. The lobby erupted. Questions. Flashes. Gasps. But all I could see was Robert. All I could feel was 7 years of pain rising to the surface. This wasn't the ending. This was where my story really began. But to understand how we got here, to this moment of cameras flashing and whispers exploding and my entire world tilting on its axis, I need to take you back. Back to the beginning. Back to the girl I was before heartbreak taught me how to rebuild myself from nothing. Back to my first day at the Royal Imperial Hotel. I was 19 years old, and I'd never seen anything like it. The employee entrance was around back, tucked between the loading dock and the industrial dumpsters, the kind of doorway designed to remind you exactly where you belonged in the hierarchy. But even that back hallway, with its fluorescent lights and concrete floors, felt like stepping into another world. My uniform was stiff and new. The name tag felt heavy. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. First day. An older woman, Maria, I'd learn later, smiled at me as we clocked in. Her uniform was worn soft from years of washing, her name tag scratched but polished. That obvious. I tried to laugh, but it came out nervous. You'll do fine, honey. Just remember, smile, move fast, and stay invisible. That's the secret to surviving here. Stay invisible. I nodded like I understood, but inside, something rebelled against those words. I hadn't worked this hard, hadn't beaten out 50 other applicants, hadn't spent my last $20 on professional shoes just to be invisible. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to matter. I just didn't know yet how dangerous that wanting could be. The Royal Imperial Hotel wasn't just a building, it was a statement. Marble floors that gleamed like mirrors. Crystal chandeliers that caught light and scattered it like diamonds. Guests who moved through the lobby in designer clothes that cost more than my mother made in 6 months of 16-hour shifts at her sewing machine. My mother. God, I could still hear her voice that morning as she'd pressed a $20 bill into my palm. Mija, you're going to do amazing things, she'd said, her hands rough from years of needlework, her smile fierce with pride. Don't let anyone make you feel small. You hear me? You're just as good as anyone who walks through those doors. I'd hugged her tight, breathing in the familiar smell of fabric softener and hope, and promised I'd make her proud. Now, standing in the service corridor with my tray of champagne glasses, watching wealthy guests laugh and network in the lobby beyond, I felt the weight of that promise like a stone in my chest. Elliot. The floor manager's voice cracked like a whip. Section 3. Move. I moved. The first week was brutal. Not because the work was hard. I'd worked hard jobs before, knew how to stay on my feet for 12-hour shifts, knew how to smile until my face ached. But there was a difference between working hard at a diner where everyone was struggling together and working hard at the Royal Imperial, where the divide between staff and guests was a chasm you could feel in every interaction. We weren't people to most of them. We were functions. The girl who brought drinks. The man who carried luggage. The hands that cleaned rooms while guests slept in beds that cost more per night than we made in a week. You're too ambitious, one of the other servers, Jessica, told me during a break on day 3. She wasn't being mean, just matter of fact. I see you watching everything, taking mental notes. That's not how you survive here. I want to learn the business, I said. Maybe work my way up to management someday. She laughed, not cruelly, but with the tired wisdom of someone who'd learned to stop dreaming. Honey, girls like us don't become managers. We serve the managers. The sooner you accept that, the easier this job gets. But I couldn't accept it. Wouldn't. My father had driven buses for 30 years until his back gave out. My mother had sewn until her fingers cramped and bled. They'd worked themselves into exhaustion so I could have a chance at something different. I wasn't going to waste it by staying invisible. I met Robert Bailey on my 9th day. I didn't know who he was at first, just another man in an expensive suit, younger than most of the executives, walking through the lobby with a leather portfolio and sharp, assessing eyes. What made him different was that he looked at things. Really looked. Not past the staff to the guests, but at the staff themselves. At the lobby layout. At the flow of service. At details most executives never noticed because they'd never had to. I was refilling water glasses in the executive dining area when he stopped beside my station. Excuse me. I turned, expecting a complaint or a request. Yes, sir. You just corrected a booking error at the front desk. I saw you speaking with the reception manager. My heart sank. Oh God, had I overstepped? Gotten someone in trouble? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. No. He held up a hand, and something in his expression stopped my panic. You saved us from a major problem. A double booking for a VIP guest who's worth millions in annual revenue. How did you catch it? I blinked. I overheard the guest mention his usual suite number when I served him coffee yesterday. When I passed the desk this morning and heard them assigning that same suite to someone else, I just thought someone should know. You remembered a detail from yesterday. From a conversation you weren't part of. And you took initiative to fix a problem that wasn't your responsibility. He extended his hand. Robert Bailey, Regional Director. I shook it, feeling the calluses on his palm, unexpected on an executive. Patricia Elliott. Server. Nice to meet you, Patricia. That kind of attention to detail is rare. He paused, studying me with those sharp eyes. How long have you been here? 9 days. Something like surprise flickered across his face. 9 days, and you're already seeing problems that staff who've been here for years miss. He nodded slowly. Keep that up. This industry needs people who care about getting things right. Then he walked away, leaving me standing there with my water pitcher and a strange, unfamiliar feeling blooming in my chest. Hope. Not the desperate kind I'd carried through the employee entrance on my first day, but something steadier. Something that felt like validation. Someone had seen me. Really seen me. And he'd said I was rare. After that, I started noticing Robert everywhere. Not intentionally, or maybe it was intentional, I don't know. But our paths seemed to cross with increasing frequency. In hallways. In the service corridors. In the lobby during shift changes. He always acknowledged me. A nod. A brief greeting. Once, he held the door when my hands were full of linens. "Thank you, Mr. Bailey." "Robert," he corrected. "And you're welcome." Small moments. Nothing extraordinary. But in a place where most executives looked through us like we were ghosts, those small moments felt revolutionary. 3 weeks into my employment, I was restocking the coffee station at 11 p.m., long after my shift had officially ended, when Robert emerged from the conference room looking exhausted. "You're still here." I gestured at the half-empty coffee station. "Someone has to prep for the morning shift. The overnight guy called in sick." "That's not your job." "No, but if it doesn't get done, the breakfast service suffers. And when breakfast service suffers, guests complain. And when guests complain, everyone's day gets harder." I shrugged. "It's just easier to handle it now." He studied me for a long moment. Then he picked up a coffee pot and started helping. "Mr. Bailey, Robert, you don't have to." "I know." He smiled slightly. "But you're right. It's easier to handle it now." We worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then he said quietly, "Why hospitality? Why this industry?" I paused, considering how honest to be. "I want to understand how places like this run. How to make them better. How to build something where the people who do the work get treated like they matter." "That's ambitious." "Is that bad?" "No." He looked at me directly. "It's rare. Most people in this industry either stop seeing the staff as human or they burn out from caring too much. You seem to have found a balance. You care, but you don't lose yourself in it." "My parents worked themselves to exhaustion so I could have opportunities," I said softly. "The least I can do is use those opportunities to build something better." Robert nodded slowly. "You've got integrity, Patricia. Don't lose it. It's rarer than gold in this industry. People will try to convince you that compromising your values is just being realistic or playing the game. Don't believe them." Something in his voice made me look up. "Is that what happened to you?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm still figuring that out." We finished the coffee station together. And when we were done, he turned to me and said, "You should go home. Get some rest." "You too." "I will. Soon." He hesitated, then added, "Patricia? Keep asking questions. Keep paying attention. Keep caring. Those are the things that will make you great at this." I watched him walk back toward the conference room, leather portfolio under his arm, shoulders carrying the weight of responsibilities I couldn't yet imagine. And I thought, this is what it looks like when someone sees your potential instead of your limitations. I thought, maybe this place won't grind me down after all. I thought, maybe I've finally found someone who understands what it means to want something more. Two dreamers in very different worlds, standing in an empty coffee station at midnight, both believing that hard work and integrity could build something worth having. I was wrong about so many things back then. But I wasn't wrong about the connection forming between us. I just didn't know yet how much that connection would cost. The thing about falling in love is that you never see it coming until you're already halfway down. One moment you're two colleagues sharing coffee at midnight, talking about operational efficiency and guest satisfaction metrics. The next moment, you're looking at each other across an empty lobby at 2 a.m., and suddenly those conversations about hotel management feel like the most intimate thing you've ever experienced. It happened slowly, then all at once. 6 weeks after that night at the coffee station, Robert started finding reasons to check on the service floor during my shifts. Just quick walkthroughs, he'd say. Quality control. Making sure standards were being maintained. But his eyes would find mine across crowded rooms. And when they did, something warm and terrifying would bloom in my chest. "You're going to get us both in trouble," I whispered one night when he appeared in the service corridor where I was organizing inventory. "Trouble how?" He leaned against the doorframe, that slight smile playing at his lips. "I'm just reviewing our supply chain efficiency." "At 10 p.m.? I'm very dedicated to my job." "Robert." I tried to sound stern, but I was fighting my own smile. "People are going to notice. Let them notice that I recognize good work when I see it." His expression turned serious. "You've already improved our service response time by 15%. You've caught 3 major booking errors. You've trained 2 new hires who are now outperforming staff who've been here for years. Should I pretend not to notice that because of, what? Optics? You know it's not that simple." Maybe it should be. But we both knew it wasn't. The first time he asked me to stay after my shift, really stay, not just to finish tasks, I should have said no. "I'm working on a proposal for the board," he said. "About staff training and advancement opportunities. I could use your perspective." We sat in his office with the door open, professional, appropriate. I gave him my thoughts on career pathways for service workers, on how to identify potential in people the industry usually overlooked. "You should be the one presenting this," he said when we finished. "Robert, I'm 19 and I've been here 2 months. Nobody's going to listen to me." "Then we need to change that. The people who understand these problems best are the ones living them." The way he said, we made something flutter in my chest. Like we were a team. Like my voice mattered. "Why are you doing this?" I asked quietly. "Really?" He was silent for a long moment. "Because I grew up in a house where my father worked 3 jobs and still couldn't make rent. Because I watched him break himself for companies that never saw him as anything but labor. Because I got lucky, a scholarship, a mentor, opportunities that shouldn't have depended on luck." He met my eyes. "And because when I look at you, I see someone who shouldn't have to be lucky. Someone who's already earned everything they're reaching for." That was the moment. When professional respect shifted into something else. Something neither of us could take back. We were careful. So careful. No public displays. No obvious favoritism. We met after hours, in empty conference rooms and quiet corners of the hotel that guests never saw. We talked about everything, his childhood, my dreams, the industry we both wanted to change, the world we hoped to build. "If I could design a hotel from scratch," I told him one night, "it would have career pathways built in. Education assistance. Profit sharing. Ways for people to grow instead of just survive." "When you design that hotel," he said softly, "I want to help you build it." When. Not if. Like he believed in my future as much as I was starting to. I fell in love with him in those quiet hours. Not because he was handsome or successful or charming, though he was all those things. But because he saw me. The real me, beneath the uniform and the circumstances. And he treated my ambitions like they were just as valid as his own. "I love you," he said one night, 3 months into whatever we were. We were in his car in the employee parking lot, the only place we could have privacy. "I know the timing is complicated. I know this isn't simple. But I need you to know that." My heart was hammering. "I love you too. We'll figure this out," he promised. "Once I'm in a stronger position, once I've proven myself to the board, we won't have to hide. We can be together openly." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But somewhere deep down, a voice whispered, "Girls like you don't get happy endings in places like this." I ignored it. The rumors started in week 14. I first heard them in the break room. 2 housekeepers, voices low but not low enough. "Did you see how he looks at her? It's obvious. She's probably sleeping with him. How else would a server get that much attention from a director?" My hands shook as I poured my coffee. I wanted to turn around to defend myself, to scream that it wasn't like that, except it was like that, and I had no defense that wouldn't make everything worse. I told Robert that night. His jaw tightened. "I'll handle it." "How?" I'll be more careful. We'll be more careful." But rumors don't need truth to spread. They need just enough plausibility, just enough envy, just enough people willing to believe the worst. Within a week, I felt the shift. Co-workers who'd been friendly turned cold. The floor manager started scrutinizing my work with sudden intensity. And the executive staff, the ones who'd barely noticed me before, started watching me with calculation in their eyes. The waitress who slept her way up, I heard someone say in the hallway. I wasn't even up. I was still serving champagne and clearing plates and working the same shifts I'd always worked. But the narrative was already written. Robert was promoted to vice president on a Tuesday morning in March. Youngest VP in company history. The announcement came with press releases and congratulations, and a buzz of excitement through the executive floors. He texted me, "We need to talk. Tonight." Something in those words made my stomach drop. He met me in the parking garage after my shift, his expression carefully controlled. Too controlled. "The board has concerns," he said without preamble. "About what?" "About us. About the optics. About how it looks that I'm involved with someone on staff." Involved. The word felt clinical. Cold. "Is that what we're calling it now?" "Patricia, please. I'm trying to navigate this carefully." "What does that mean?" "Navigate what?" He took a breath. "They're asking me to create distance. Professional distance. They think the relationship undermines my authority. Makes me look like I'm playing favorites." "Are you?" My voice was sharper than I'd intended. "Playing favorites? You know you've earned every bit of recognition you've gotten. But they don't believe that. They think I'm just the waitress who seduced her way into your attention." I laughed bitterly. "And now that you have your promotion, I'm becoming a problem." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" I searched his face, looking for the man who'd promised we'd figure this out. "What are you asking me, Robert? To pretend we don't know each other? To end this?" "I'm asking for time. To let things settle. To prove to the board that my judgment isn't compromised." "Your judgment." The words tasted like ash. "Not our relationship. Not your feelings. Just your judgment." "You're twisting my words." I'm hearing them clearly for the first time. We stared at each other across the dim garage, and I felt something fundamental cracking between us. "I love you," he said desperately. "That hasn't changed. But it's not enough, is it? Love doesn't pay your student loans or your mother's medical bills or buy you the VP title you've worked so hard for. That's not fair, Patricia." "No. What's not fair is being told that my existence in your life is now a liability. What's not fair is knowing that when they made you choose between me and your career, you didn't even hesitate." "I haven't chosen anything yet." "Yes, you have. The fact that you're here, asking me to step back, telling me to give you time, that's a choice, Robert. You've already made it." I didn't sleep that night. Just lay in my small apartment staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how to exist in a space that had become uninhabitable. The answer came the next morning. My locker. The envelope. My name misspelled, Patricia Elliott. "Your employment at the Royal Imperial Hotel is terminated effective immediately. Please collect your personal belongings and exit through the service entrance." No explanation. No signature. Just 2 sentences that detonated my entire world. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Around me, other staff members dressed for their shifts, their careful silence louder than any words. They all knew. Everyone knew. I was the cautionary tale now, the girl who'd reached too high and paid the price. Robert found me in the parking garage 20 minutes later. I was sitting in my car, everything I owned from that place in a cardboard box on my lap. "Patricia." His voice cracked. "God, Patricia, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know they were going to." "Didn't you?" I didn't look at him. Couldn't. "You told them you'd create distance. They solved your problem for you." I tried to stop it. I went to the board. I told them you were the best employee we had. But you didn't quit. Finally, I turned to face him. You didn't walk away. You didn't tell them to choose between us or you. You just let them fire me. I have responsibilities. Don't. My voice was ice. Don't tell me about your responsibilities. I had responsibilities too. I had dreams. I had a mother who worked herself sick so I could have opportunities. And you let them take all of that from me to protect your career. That's not what happened. Yes, it is. You told me integrity was rarer than gold. That it mattered more than anything in this industry. I felt tears burning behind my eyes but refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. Turns out, only mine had to be. I love you. No. I started my engine. You loved the idea of me. You loved having someone who believed in your better instincts. But when it came down to choosing between me and everything else, I was never really a choice at all. Patricia, please. Goodbye, Robert. I drove away with my cardboard box and my shattered dreams. And in my rearview mirror, I watched him stand there in the parking garage, this man I'd loved, this man who'd taught me about integrity while compromising his own. I cried that night until my throat was raw and my chest ached and there were no tears left. Then I stopped crying. And I started rebuilding. Because the most important thing Robert had taught me, even if he didn't live it himself, was that integrity isn't something anyone gives you. It's something you build, brick by brick, even when the world tries to tear it down. Especially then. I need you to understand something about survival. It's not dramatic. It doesn't come with soaring music or inspirational montages or moments where you suddenly realize your strength and everything clicks into place. It's quiet. It's exhausting. It happens one brutal day at a time, in the space between giving up and getting up again. The first 6 months were the hardest. I took a job at a diner 40 miles from the Royal Imperial, far enough that I'd never accidentally run into anyone from that life. The uniform was polyester instead of pressed cotton. The floors were linoleum instead of marble. The tips were sparse and the customers were tired, working people who couldn't afford champagne wishes but needed coffee and kindness. I was good at it. I'd always been good at service. But something fundamental had shifted in me. I no longer apologized for taking up space. I no longer softened my voice to make others comfortable. I no longer tried to be invisible. I'd learned the hard way that invisibility doesn't protect you. It just makes it easier for people to erase you when you become inconvenient. At night, after double shifts that left my feet aching and my back screaming, I'd sit at my tiny kitchen table with my laptop and study. Hospitality management courses. Business administration. Financial planning. Everything I'd wanted to learn at the Royal Imperial, but had been too busy serving to pursue. "You're crazy," my roommate, a nursing student named Keisha, said one night, watching me highlight textbooks at 2 a.m., "You work 60 hours a week and then you study? When do you sleep?" "When I have the career I want," I said. "Not the one people think I deserve." She studied me with those sharp eyes of hers. "Someone really did a number on you, huh? Someone taught me that waiting for opportunities doesn't work. You have to build them yourself." It wasn't entirely true. Robert hadn't just taught me that lesson. He branded it into my soul by being the person who said integrity mattered and then sacrificed mine to protect his own advancement. But I was learning to reframe that pain. To alchemize it into something useful. Fuel, not poison. Year 2, I moved to a better hotel. Nothing fancy, a mid-tier business hotel near the airport, but it had structure, standards, potential. The general manager there was a woman named Diane who'd worked her way up from housekeeping. "You've got something," she told me after my first month. "You see the business, not just your job. Most servers just do their tasks. You understand how everything connects." "I want to understand the whole operation," I said. "Not just my piece of it." "Why?" "Because someday I want to run my own place. And when I do, I want to know what every person who works there goes through. I want to build something better." Diane smiled, sad and knowing. "This industry breaks people like you. The ones who care. The ones who remember they're leading humans, not managing labor costs. Then maybe I'll be the one who doesn't break." She put me on the management track. Taught me scheduling, inventory, guest relations, crisis management. Let me shadow her during tough conversations with corporate, during budget meetings, during the million small fires that defined hotel operations. I soaked it all in like I was dying of thirst. At night, I studied accounting, marketing, leadership theory. I read books by hotel magnates and industry innovators. I learned the language of business, ROI, market positioning, brand differentiation, operational efficiency. I learned how to speak power's language so that one day when I had power, I could change the conversation entirely. Year 4, I got my certification in hospitality management. Keisha threw me a small party in our apartment. Just us, cheap wine, a grocery store cake with "you did it" in shaky frosting letters. To Patricia, she toasted. Who's going to change the whole damn industry? I just want to run a good hotel, I protested. No. She looked at me seriously. You want to prove that someone like you belongs at the top. And you're going to do it. I cried that night. The first tears I'd let myself shed in years. Not from sadness, but from the sheer relief of having someone believe in me without needing me to be anything other than myself. And meanwhile, the world watched Robert Bailey rise. I couldn't avoid it entirely. His face was everywhere. Magazine covers, the 30 under 30 transforming hospitality. Financial news, Bailey Hospitality Group acquires third luxury chain. Industry conferences, the youngest billionaire in hotel management shares his success story. The first time I saw his face on a magazine cover, in the checkout line at a grocery store, I felt like I'd been punched. There he was, looking polished and powerful in a designer suit, with that same slight smile I'd once loved. The headline read, Robert Bailey, Building an Empire on Integrity. I bought groceries at a different store after that. I trained myself not to look. Not to click when his name appeared in search results. Not to wonder if he ever thought about me, about us, about the woman he'd let his company destroy to protect his career. Some nights, I'd lie awake and imagine what I'd say if I ever saw him again. Angry speeches. Cutting remarks. Cool, dismissive acknowledgments that I'd moved on and he was nothing to me now. But truthfully, I hoped I'd never have to find out. The woman I'd become, stronger, wiser, self-made, had been forged in the fire of that betrayal. I didn't want to risk her on the man who'd held the match. Year 7 arrived quietly. I was working as an assistant manager at a boutique hotel downtown, making decent money, building my resume, saving slowly toward the future I was constructing brick by brick. I'd dated, cautiously. Nothing serious. I'd learned to protect the parts of myself that still carried old scars. I had friends. A life. Stability. I wasn't happy exactly. But I was okay. And after everything, okay felt like an achievement. That's when I saw the ad. I was scrolling through job listings out of habit. I always kept an eye on opportunities, even when I wasn't actively looking, when the post appeared. The Royal Imperial Hotel, hiring temporary service staff for exclusive investor summit. Competitive pay. Immediate placement. Experience preferred. My finger hovered over the screen. The Royal Imperial. The place that had broken me. The place where I'd learned that love and integrity weren't enough when power had other plans. I should have scrolled past. Should have left that door closed. But something pulled at me. Some unfinished business I couldn't quite name. Don't, Keisha said when I mentioned it over dinner. That place destroyed you once. Why give it another chance? I'm not giving it a chance. I'm not afraid of it anymore. I met her eyes. And maybe I need to prove that to myself. Prove what? That you can walk through those doors without falling apart. Maybe. But it was more than that, and we both knew it. Some part of me needed to return to the scene of my greatest failure and show myself, even if no one else saw it, that I'd survived. That I'd rebuilt. That the girl who'd driven away crying in a decade-old sedan had become a woman who couldn't be erased. I applied using a slightly different name spelling. Left my employment history vague. Got hired within 48 hours. My first day back was a Wednesday morning in early fall. I parked in the same employee lot where Robert had watched me drive away 7 years earlier. Walked through the same service entrance where I'd once arrived wide-eyed and hopeful at 19. The locker room smelled the same, industrial cleaner and fluorescent lights and the quiet anxiety of people preparing to be invisible. I dressed in a uniform, fastened the name tag, looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back wasn't the girl who'd left. Her eyes were harder. Her jaw was set. Her shoulders carried the weight of everything she'd survived and everything she'd built from the ashes. You've got this, I whispered to my reflection. And I did. Walking through that gilded lobby again felt surreal. The marble floors gleamed the same. The chandeliers scattered the same diamond light. The guests moved through with the same casual wealth, the same oblivious confidence of people who'd never had to question whether they belonged. But everything was different because I was different. I wasn't trying to prove myself anymore. Wasn't trying to earn anyone's approval or respect. I was just a woman doing a job, collecting a paycheck, observing an old battlefield with the clinical distance of someone who'd already survived the war. "You okay?" Maria, still here after all these years, her uniform now worn even softer, touched my arm gently. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just remembering," I said. "Well, stop remembering and start working." The summit guests arrive in an hour and management is losing their minds over every detail. I smiled. Some things never change. Honey, nothing changes in places like this. Same marble. Same money. Same people forgetting that we're human. But she was wrong about one thing. I had changed. And that made all the difference. I told myself I was back for the paycheck. For the experience of proving I could handle returning to the place that had broken me. For closure, maybe, or healing, or some other therapeutic reason that justified the risk. But late that night, after my first shift, sitting in my car in that same parking lot, I let myself admit the truth. Part of me wanted him to see what he'd thrown away. Part of me wanted to look him in the eye, if I ever saw him again, and show him that his betrayal hadn't destroyed me. That I'd rebuilt myself into someone stronger than he'd ever given me credit for. Part of me wanted revenge. Not the dramatic kind. Not public humiliation or carefully orchestrated downfall. Just the quiet satisfaction of being okay. Of being whole. Of being someone who'd survived him and succeeded anyway. "I'm not back for revenge," I whispered to the empty car. "Just a paycheck." But I was lying. And 3 days later, when those wealthy women laughed at me for claiming Robert Bailey was my boyfriend, when I spoke those words into the crystalline air of that lobby, "Yes, that's my boyfriend," I'd finally understand why I'd really come back. Not for revenge. Not for closure. For the truth. And for the moment when karma would finally catch up. The Global Hospitality Investors Summit. That's what the banners called it. What it actually was, a gathering of the wealthiest people in the industry, descending on the Royal Imperial Hotel to discuss acquisitions, mergers, and which properties they'd strip for parts or transform into their next trophy projects. For 3 days, the hotel would be a showcase. Every detail perfect. Every service flawless. Every staff member invisible unless needed. I'd worked events like this before at other hotels. I knew the rhythm. Smile, serve, disappear. Anticipate needs before they're spoken. Move through the rooms like water, present but formless, helpful but forgettable. I could do this. I'd done harder things than serve champagne to wealthy people who didn't see me as human. Or so I thought. Day 1 was manageable. The lobby filled with designer luggage and expensive perfume and the particular energy of people accustomed to being catered to. Registration packets in cream cardstock with gold lettering. Welcome champagne served on silver trays. Networking conversations that were really just elaborate status displays. I moved through it all with practiced efficiency. 7 years had taught me something valuable. Competence is its own kind of armor. Do your job well enough, and you become functionally invisible, not because you're overlooked, but because you're expected. "Excuse me." A hand snapped near my face. Not at me, just near me, like I was a service bell. "More champagne. And make sure it's actually cold this time." Of course. I smiled blandly, refilled the glass from my tray, moved on. This was fine. This was manageable. Just 3 more days. Day 2, the panels began. Morning sessions on market trends. Lunch networking in the grand ballroom. Afternoon workshops on digital transformation and sustainable luxury. Evening cocktail reception where real deals got made while string quartets played and canapes circulated. I was assigned to the ballroom, prime position, highest visibility, best tips if you played it right. The room glittered with crystal and candlelight, every surface reflecting wealth back at itself. That's where I saw them. 3 women at a corner table, draped in the kind of casual elegance that costs a fortune to look effortless. Designer dresses that probably cost more than I made in 3 months. Jewelry that caught the light with calculated precision. The kind of women who'd been guests at the Royal Imperial 7 years ago and were still guests now, because some people's positions never change. I recognized one of them immediately, Vanessa something. She'd been here during my first year, always demanding, always dismissive, always treating staff like animated furniture. Her friends looked cast from the same mold, beautiful, polished, cruel in that careless way of people who've never faced consequences. I approached their table with my tray, professional smile fixed in place. "Ladies, champagne?" Finally. Vanessa took a glass without looking at me. "The service here has really declined. We've been waiting 10 minutes. It had been 3 minutes. I'd watched the clock. But arguing would only make things worse. My apologies. Can I get you anything else?" Information. One of her friends, auburn hair, emerald dress, sharp eyes, leaned forward conspiratorially. "We heard Robert Bailey is here. Somewhere in the hotel. Have you seen him?" My hand tightened imperceptibly on the tray. "I haven't seen any guest list, ma'am." "Oh, he's not here yet." The third woman, blonde and bored, examined her manicure. "But he's supposed to arrive today. Apparently he's scouting properties to acquire. Maybe even this one." God, can you imagine? Vanessa laughed. "Robert Bailey owning the Royal Imperial? Though I suppose he owns half the luxury hotels in the world already. What's one more? He's gorgeous too." Auburn hair sighed dramatically. "And single. Well, single-ish. You know how these billionaires are. They have companions, but never anyone serious. Never anyone who actually matters." The words hit like small cuts, each one precise and deliberate even though they weren't directed at me. Or maybe they were. Maybe everything about this conversation was designed to remind people like me where we stood in the hierarchy. "Must be nice," the blonde continued, "having so much power that you can just choose. Choose which hotels to buy. Choose which people matter. Choose who gets to be part of your world and who stays outside it." I should have walked away. Should have smiled and moved on to the next table. Should have maintained the professional distance that had protected me for 7 years. But something in their tone, the casual cruelty, the careless certainty that they occupied the center of the universe while people like me orbited invisibly, cracked something open inside me. "Excuse me." Vanessa snapped her fingers again, and this time I felt it like a slap. "We're discussing business. You can go." But auburn hair stopped me, her eyes narrowing with sudden recognition. "Wait. You look familiar. Have we met?" "I don't believe so, ma'am." "No, I know you. You worked here before, didn't you? Years ago." She tilted her head, studying me like I was a puzzle to solve. "You were one of the servers. I remember now. You were always so earnest. Like you actually cared about the job." The way she said earnest made it sound like an insult. "Yes," I said carefully. "I worked here previously." "I knew it." She turned to her friends triumphantly. "See? Some people never leave the service industry. They just cycle through the same positions at different hotels." "How sad," Vanessa murmured, not sounding sad at all. "So you must know Robert Bailey then," auburn hair pressed. "If you worked here when he was regional director. Before he became, Robert Bailey." She said his name like it was its own sentence, weighted with significance. My heart was hammering. I could feel the trap closing, could see exactly where this conversation was heading. But something stubborn and furious rose in my throat. "Yes," I said quietly. "I know him." "Really?" The blonde perked up, interested now. "What's he like? Is he as intense in person as he seems in interviews? Did you ever actually talk to him?" Vanessa's tone made it clear she thought the answer was no. "Or did you just serve him coffee and imagine he noticed you?" The mockery in her voice was subtle but unmistakable. This was a game to them. I was entertainment, a curiosity, someone to condescend to while they waited for the real people, the important people, to arrive. I should have lied. Should have smiled and deflected and protected myself the way I'd learned to do. Instead, I looked Vanessa directly in the eye and said, "He's my boyfriend." The silence that followed felt like the moment before thunder. Then they laughed. All three of them. Not the polite chuckle of people being kind to a joke. The real thing, heads thrown back, hands on their chests, The kind of laughter that cuts through a room and demands attention. Other tables turned to look. Other guests smiled, wondering what was so funny. The room's energy shifted, focusing on our corner like a spotlight had suddenly illuminated something absurd. "Oh my God." Vanessa gasped between laughs. "Oh my God, did you hear that?" She thinks, more laughter. She actually thinks Robert Bailey is her boyfriend. Sweetheart. Auburn hair dabbed at her eyes with a cocktail napkin. Men like Robert Bailey don't date girls who serve drinks. They hire them. There's a difference. Maybe she served him once and he was polite, the blonde suggested, still giggling. And she's been dining out on that fantasy ever since. How pathetic. My face was burning. I could feel eyes on me from every direction. Other guests wondering what the commotion was, other servers carefully not looking, the floor manager across the room starting to notice the disturbance. "I'm not fantasizing," I said, and hated how defensive I sounded. "I know him." You know him." Vanessa's tone was pure condescension. "Let me guess. You had a little crush on him when he worked here? Maybe he smiled at you once in a hallway? And you've built that up in your mind into some grand romance." "That's so sad," Auburn hair cooed with fake sympathy. "Honey, men like that exist in a completely different world than you do. They date models and heiresses and women who can actually contribute to their lives. They don't date waitresses. That's just reality." "Even if he was nice to you once," the blonde added, "that doesn't mean anything. Rich men are nice to lots of people. It's called good manners, not romantic interest." The laughter had subsided into something worse, pity. They weren't angry at my claim. They were amused by it. Like I was a child insisting on a fantasy too absurd to take seriously. "He used to say the same thing," I said quietly, surprising myself. "About billionaires who forget the people who helped them build their empires." "What?" Vanessa frowned, the amusement fading slightly. "Nothing." I picked up my tray, my hand steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. "Enjoy your champagne." I walked away with as much dignity as I could manage. Behind me, I heard their laughter resume, lower now but still present, still cutting. "Can you believe that?" one of them said, voice carrying. "The delusion. Thinking someone like her could ever." I didn't hear the rest. I was already moving through the ballroom, past other tables, other guests, other servers who'd witnessed my humiliation and were carefully pretending they hadn't. The floor manager intercepted me near the service corridor. "Elliot." His expression was tight. "What was that about?" "Nothing, sir. Just a misunderstanding." It looked like more than a misunderstanding. "Those women are major investors. We can't afford. It won't happen again." He studied me skeptically. "See that it doesn't. We're here to serve, not to fraternize or make inappropriate claims about guests." "Understood." He walked away, and I stood there in the corridor, tray in hand, feeling the familiar sting of being put in my place. Reminded once again that certain stories weren't for people like me to tell. That certain truths weren't believable when they came from the wrong mouths. I'd told the truth, and they'd laughed. Because in their world, someone like me claiming to know someone like Robert Bailey wasn't truth, it was delusion. A fantasy. The desperate invention of someone trying to inflate their importance. The fact that I'd actually loved him, that he'd actually loved me, or claimed to, that we'd shared dreams and promises and late-night conversations about building something better, none of that mattered. Not when I was wearing a server's uniform and he was on magazine covers. Not when they'd already decided what was possible and what wasn't. Not when the world had clear rules about who got to matter and who stayed invisible. I set down my tray with shaking hands. Took a breath. Then another. I wasn't going to cry. Wasn't going to break. I'd survived worse than 3 cruel women's laughter. I'd survived Robert's betrayal. I'd survived being fired. I'd survived 7 years of rebuilding myself from nothing. I could survive this. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that outside, on the private airstrip reserved for VIP arrivals, a jet had just landed. That 4 men in black suits were descending the stairs. That Robert Bailey himself was stepping onto the tarmac, surrounded by security, carrying documents that would change everything. That in less than 10 minutes, He'd walk through the golden doors of the Royal Imperial Hotel for the first time in 7 years. And that when he did, every person who'd laughed at me would finally understand what I'd tried to tell them. That truth doesn't stop being truth just because people refuse to believe it. The private jet touched down at exactly 2:47 p.m. Robert Bailey had timed it precisely, late enough that the summit would be in full swing, early enough that the announcement could dominate the evening news cycle. Timing, he'd learned, was everything in business. And this particular piece of business had been 7 years in the making. He stood at the jet's doorway for a moment, looking at the city skyline, at the gleaming spire of the Royal Imperial Hotel, rising above everything else like a monument to the life he'd built and the person he destroyed in the process. Sir Marcus, his head of security, waited at the bottom of the stairs. The cars are ready. Robert adjusted his cuffs, a nervous habit he'd never quite broken, and descended. 4 men in black suits fell into formation around him. 2 carrying briefcases. 2 scanning the perimeter with the practiced vigilance of people paid to anticipate threats. All of them moving with a synchronized precision that marked Robert's entire operation. He'd built an empire on attention to detail. On seeing what others missed. On remembering the small things that made the difference between good and exceptional. Like remembering the name of a 19-year-old server who'd caught a booking error and saved him hundreds of thousands in lost revenue. Like remembering the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her dreams. Like remembering exactly how her face looked the day he let them fire her to protect his career. Sir Marcus prompted again. Robert pulled the folder from his briefcase. Contract signed that morning, a deal that had taken months of quiet negotiation, a purchase that most of the industry didn't even know was happening. Let's go, he said. It's time to finish what I started. Inside the ballroom, I was trying to disappear. Not physically. I still had 3 hours left on my shift, still had tables to serve, still had a job to do. But emotionally, mentally, I was pulling every wall back up, retreating into the armor of professional competence that had protected me for 7 years. The laughter had finally faded. The 3 women had moved on to other conversations, other gossip, other ways to pass the time between panels. But the damage was done. I could feel eyes on me from other tables, curious, pitying, amused. The story would spread. Did you hear about the server who thinks she's dating Robert Bailey? By tomorrow, I'd be a punchline. You okay? Maria appeared beside me with her tray, her expression sympathetic. Fine. You don't look fine. You look like you want to set something on fire. Just 3 specific people. Nothing dramatic. She smiled slightly. For what it's worth, I believe you. I looked at her, surprised. You do. Honey, I've been here 15 years. I've seen things. And I remember how he used to look at you, like you were the only real thing in this whole fake place. She squeezed my arm. Whatever happened between you two, it was real. Don't let those witches make you doubt that. Before I could respond, the energy in the room shifted. It was subtle at first, a hush near the entrance, heads turning, conversations pausing mid-sentence. Then it built, spreading through the ballroom like a wave, until the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Oh my God, someone whispered. Is that? The massive glass doors at the lobby entrance swung open. 4 men in black suits entered first, moving with military precision, eyes scanning the crowd with professional assessment. Behind them, framed against the afternoon light streaming through the hotel's crystal facade, walked Robert Bailey. He looked exactly as I remembered, only more polished, more powerful, more like someone who'd spent 7 years becoming untouchable. His suit probably cost more than I'd made all year. His watch caught the light like a declaration. His presence commanded attention in a way that had nothing to do with height or volume and everything to do with the gravitational pull of power. The room froze. Cameras materialized from nowhere, summit photographers, hotel staff, guests who sensed something significant was happening. Flashes exploded like small fireworks. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, voices overlapping in excited speculation. Robert Bailey, he's actually here. Do you think he's really buying? Oh my God, look at him. At their corner table, Vanessa and her friends had gone completely still, champagne glasses forgotten, all their casual cruelty evaporating into stunned silence. The hotel director materialized from somewhere, his face flushed with panic and excitement, already moving forward with his hand extended. Mr. Bailey. What an unexpected honor. We weren't expecting you until. But Robert wasn't looking at him. His eyes swept the ballroom with laser focus, moving past the investors, past the cameras, past the director still stammering his greeting, until they found exactly what they were searching for. Me. Our eyes met across the crowded room, and everything else disappeared. 7 years collapsed into a single moment. Every late-night conversation. Every whispered promise. Every shared dream. The parking garage. The termination letter. The way he'd let me drive away. All of it, present in the space between us. I couldn't breathe. Then he moved, walking straight toward me with deliberate purpose, his security team flanking him, the entire room turning to follow his trajectory, everyone trying to understand what was happening, who he was moving toward, why the most powerful man in the room was crossing a ballroom full of billionaires to approach a server with an empty tray. Vanessa's face went pale. Auburn hair's mouth actually fell open. The blonde made a small sound like a gasp strangled in her throat. The floor manager stepped forward nervously. "Mr. Bailey, if there's a problem with service." "There's no problem," Robert said without looking at him. His eyes never left mine. He stopped 3 feet away. Close enough that I could see the lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 7 years ago. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, different from what he'd worn before, more expensive, but somehow still familiar. Close enough that I could see my reflection in his eyes and understand that he'd been looking for me. "Patricia." His voice was low, meant only for me despite the 100 people straining to hear. "You kept your promise." My throat was tight. What promise? Something like pain crossed his face, quick and genuine. To never let them make you small again. The words hit me like a physical blow. Because he was right. Even when they'd laughed, even when they'd mocked me, even when humiliation had burned through my chest, I'd stood there with my head up and told the truth. I hadn't apologized. Hadn't shrunk. Hadn't disappeared. I'd survived him once. I'd survived them today. Tears pricked my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "Robert," I started, but I didn't know how to finish. He turned then, slowly, deliberately, to face the crowd. The cameras. The stunned investors. The 3 women who'd laughed at me minutes earlier. The hotel director. The floor manager. The entire glittering assembly of wealth and power that had spent the afternoon reminding everyone of their place in the hierarchy. When he spoke, his voice carried through the ballroom with absolute authority. "I'm Robert Bailey." As if anyone in the room didn't know. As of today, the Royal Imperial Hotel is under new ownership. The words detonated through the silence like thunder. Gasps. Someone dropped a glass, the sound of crystal shattering against marble. Cameras went into overdrive, flashes strobing frantically. Voices erupted in disbelief and excitement and confusion. What? He bought it. When did? Oh my God. The hotel director stumbled forward, his face cycling through shock, denial, panic. You can't just, Mr. Bailey, there are procedures, the board needs to approve." Robert reached into his jacket and pulled out a leather folder. Handed it to the director with clinical precision. The deal was finalized at noon today. All necessary approvals were secured. All board members were informed an hour ago. You'll find the complete documentation here, including the transfer of ownership, updated management structure, and new operational protocols. His voice was perfectly calm. Perfectly professional. The voice of someone who'd orchestrated hostile takeovers worth billions, who'd built an empire on being 3 steps ahead of everyone else. "This is, I need to verify, I need to call." The director was actually shaking. "Call whoever you need to call," Robert said. "The paperwork is in order. My legal team is available if you have questions. But as of 12:03 p.m. today, this hotel belongs to Bailey Hospitality Group." The room erupted. Investors shouting questions. Photographers jockeying for position. Staff members whispering frantically. The energy had shifted from elegant networking event to chaos in seconds. And through it all, Robert turned back to me. The cameras were still flashing. The crowd was still processing. But he looked at me like we were the only 2 people in the room, like 7 years hadn't passed, like we were back in that parking garage and he was getting a second chance to make a different choice. "I bought it for her," he said. The words cut through the noise. People actually stopped mid-sentence to listen. I bought this hotel, Robert continued, his voice carrying now, addressing the room but looking at me, for the woman this place fired without cause 7 years ago. For the woman you laughed at. His eyes flicked briefly to Vanessa's table, and they actually flinched, for claiming she knew me. For the woman who built her dignity and her career from the ground, they tried to bury her under. Dead silence. Patricia Elliott was the best employee this hotel ever had. She was fired for the crime of making me look at this industry honestly. For making me question whether power and profit were enough, or whether integrity actually mattered. He paused, and something raw flashed across his face. I made the wrong choice 7 years ago. I chose my career over defending someone who deserved better. I let them erase her to protect my advancement. I've spent every day since building an empire, he gestured around, encompassing not just the hotel but his entire fortune, but knowing that none of it meant anything because I'd compromised the one thing that actually mattered. His eyes found mine again. I can't give you back the years they took. Can't undo the pain I caused. But I can give you this: justice, vindication, and the opportunity you always deserved. The ballroom was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Patricia, Robert said softly, I'm offering you the position of Director of Guest Relations at the Royal Imperial Hotel. Full authority over service operations. Competitive salary. And the chance to build the kind of place we used to talk about, where the people who do the work are treated like they matter. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The entire room was watching, waiting for my response, and I was standing there with my server's tray, my uniform, my 7 years of survival and rebuilding, trying to process what was happening. You don't have to answer now, he added quickly. Take time. Think about it. But know that this offer is real. And it's not charity, it's what you earned years ago and were denied. Then he did something that shocked me more than anything else. He extended his hand. Not as a billionaire to a server. Not as a former director to a former employee. As an equal to an equal. Congratulations on your new position, Ms. Elliott, he said formally, loudly enough for everyone to hear. I look forward to working with you. My hands were shaking. The tray rattled slightly. Maria appeared beside me. When had she gotten there? And gently took it from my hands. Go on, honey, she whispered. Take what's yours. I looked at Robert's extended hand. At his face, which showed every one of those 7 years in the lines around his eyes. At the cameras and the crowd and the 3 women whose laughter had died into horrified silence. And I reached out and shook his hand. His grip was firm. Warm. Familiar and strange at once. Thank you, I managed to say, and was proud that my voice didn't shake. No. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, so brief it might have been accidental, but I knew it wasn't. Thank you for not letting them destroy what I tried to kill. Then he released my hand, turned back to the crowd, and became the Billionaire CEO again. The hotel will undergo a comprehensive review of all policies and personnel. Fair treatment and advancement opportunities will be prioritized. If you have questions, my team will be available tomorrow for briefings. He nodded once to his security team, and they fell back into formation around him. As he walked toward the exit, presumably to handle the 100 administrative fires this announcement had started, he paused. Vanessa's table was directly in his path. The 3 women who'd laughed at me were frozen, champagne glasses forgotten, faces pale with dawning horror as they realized exactly who I was to him. Robert stopped. Looked at them with polite, clinical assessment. You laughed at her, he said quietly, for believing in me. Funny, isn't it? How faith looks like delusion until it wins. Then he walked away, leaving them sitting in the ruins of their certainty, and I stood there in my uniform with my empty hands and my racing heart. The laughter had stopped. The humiliation had flipped. And I realized something that made me want to laugh and cry at once. This wasn't the ending of my story. It was just the beginning. The ballroom descended into controlled chaos. Investors surrounded the hotel director, demanding explanations. Photographers circled like sharks sensing blood. Staff members whispered frantically in corners, trying to understand what this meant for their jobs, their futures, their place in the suddenly unstable hierarchy. And I stood in the center of it all, feeling like I was watching the scene from underwater, distant, muffled, unreal. Patricia. Maria gripped my arm. Patricia, breathe. I realized I'd been holding my breath. Letting it out felt like breaking the surface. Did that just happen? I whispered. Oh honey, that just happened. And half the internet probably knows about it already. She gestured at the photographers who were definitely live-streaming this chaos. You just became the most famous hotel employee in the world. The thought made my stomach twist. Around us, the reactions were forming into distinct camps. Some staff members looked hopeful. New ownership might mean better treatment, fair wages, actual opportunities. Others looked terrified. Changes meant uncertainty, and uncertainty meant risk. The wealthy guests were recalculating. I could see it in their faces, the rapid social mathematics happening behind polite expressions. Patricia Elliott wasn't just a server anymore. She was someone Robert Bailey had publicly elevated. Someone with power now. Someone who mattered. Vanessa's table was a masterclass in frozen horror. Auburn hair was staring into her champagne like it might contain answers. The blonde had gone pale under her perfect makeup. And Vanessa herself looked like someone who just realized she'd insulted a princess while she was in disguise. We should, Auburn hair started. Don't, Vanessa cut her off sharply. Don't say anything. Don't do anything. We're leaving. They gathered their designer bags and fled the ballroom like it was on fire, and I felt a savage satisfaction watching them go. Ms. Elliott? A young man in a suit, one of Robert's team, approached carefully. Mr. Bailey would like to speak with you privately. When you're ready. No pressure. No pressure. Right. Just a billionaire wanting a private conversation after publicly buying a hotel and announcing he did it for me. Where? My voice sounded steadier than I felt. The executive suite. 5th floor. Take your time. He disappeared into the chaos, and Maria squeezed my arm. You going? I don't know. Should I? Should you talk to the man who just gave you everything you once dreamed of? Yeah, honey. You should. But make him explain himself first. Don't let him think grand gestures fix broken trust. She was right. I knew she was right. But part of me wanted to run. To walk out of this hotel and never look back. To refuse the position and the vindication and the complicated mess of everything Robert had just made public. Except I'd never been good at running from hard things. Okay, I said. I'm going. Good. And Patricia? Maria smiled, fierce and proud. Make him earn it. The executive suite was on the 5th floor, accessible only by private elevator. The kind of space reserved for visiting dignitaries and celebrities who needed privacy. I'd cleaned rooms like this during my first year, back when I was invisible enough to be trusted around expensive things. The doors opened onto understated luxury, cream walls, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that probably cost more than my car. Robert stood by the windows, still in his suit, but he'd loosened his tie. The small gesture made him look less like a billionaire and more like the man I'd loved 7 years ago. He turned when I entered. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? It came out sharper than I'd intended. Yes. You always have a choice, Patricia. That's the point. I stayed near the door, maintaining distance. The point of what? The grand entrance? The public announcement? Humiliating those women who laughed at me. I didn't do this to humiliate anyone. Then why? My voice rose. Why did you do it, Robert? Why now? Why this hotel? Why me? Because I owed you. You don't get to do this. The words exploded out of me, 7 years of anger and pain finally breaking free. You don't get to disappear from my life for 7 years and then swoop in with your private jet and your billions and your grand gestures and expect, what? Gratitude? Forgiveness? I expect nothing. You bought a hotel, Robert. You bought an entire hotel and appointed me to a position I never applied for in front of hundreds of people and cameras and God knows who else. That's not nothing. That's justice, he said quietly. It's manipulation. The word hung in the air between us like smoke. Robert's expression didn't change. You're right. I blinked. What? You're right. It is manipulation. I manipulated the board into selling. I manipulated the timing of the announcement. I manipulated the situation to create maximum impact. He took a step closer. But I didn't manipulate the truth. Everything I said down there was real. Which part? The part where you claimed you bought this hotel for me? Or the part where you offered me a job I never asked for? The part where I said I made the wrong choice 7 years ago. His voice cracked slightly on the last words, and I felt something in my chest twist. Robert. Let me explain. Please. You deserve the full truth. I crossed my arms, defensive. I'm listening. He moved to the windows, staring out at the city like it might make this easier. When they fired you, I didn't know. I swear to God, Patricia, I didn't know they were going to do it. I'd gone to the board the night before, told them about us, tried to make them understand that you were valuable, that the rumors were just jealousy, that we could make it work professionally. And they said no. They gave me an ultimatum. End the relationship or lose the promotion. So I told them I needed time. I thought if I could just buy a few days, I could figure out a way to protect both of us. But they didn't give you time. They fired you the next morning while I was in a meeting with investors. By the time I found out, you were already gone. And when I went to the board, when I told them they'd had no right, he turned back to face me. They told me they'd done me a favor. That they'd removed the distraction. That now I could focus on what really mattered. Your career. My career, he agreed bitterly. They'd orchestrated the whole thing. They'd already positioned me for the VP role. They'd already made the arrangements. All I had to do was accept that you were gone and move forward. And you did. What choice did I have? You'd already left. I didn't know where you'd gone. I tried to find you, called every hotel in a 50-mile radius, searched social media, hired a private investigator. You hired a private investigator? Of course I did. You think I just let you disappear? His voice was raw now, the carefully controlled billionaire facade cracking. I spent 6 months searching for you. Every time I thought I'd found a lead, it went nowhere. You'd changed your phone number. You'd moved out of your apartment. You'd vanished. I had vanished. Deliberately. Completely. Because staying findable would have meant staying breakable. Eventually, I had to accept that you didn't want to be found. That maybe you were better off without me. So I focused on the only thing I could control, building something big enough, powerful enough, that if you ever came back, I could give you what they'd taken. You built an empire for revenge. I built an empire for redemption. He moved closer, and I didn't step back. Every hotel I bought, every deal I made, every billion I earned, it was all just preparation for this moment. For the day I could walk back into this building and buy it out from under the people who hurt you. That's insane, Robert. Probably. But it's true. We stood there in expensive silence, 7 years of distance between us, and I didn't know whether to scream or cry or laugh at the absurdity of it all. Why didn't you just call me? I asked finally. Once you had resources, once you had power, why didn't you just track me down and apologize? Because an apology wasn't enough. Words weren't enough. I needed to give you back what they took, not just a job, but power. Agency. The ability to walk into this place not as someone they could fire, but as someone they have to respect. So this is about respect. This is about freedom. His eyes were intense, urgent. You can accept the position or reject it. You can work here or never set foot in this building again. You can forgive me or hate me forever. Those are all your choices now, Patricia. Not theirs. Not mine. Yours. You can't just buy forgiveness, Robert. I didn't buy forgiveness, he said softly. I bought your freedom. Everything else is up to you. I turned away, overwhelmed. Through the windows, I could see the city spread out below. All those buildings, all those lives, all those people who had no idea that my entire existence had just been rewritten. The board, I said slowly. The one that fired me. Are they still here? Most of them retired. 2 are still on the advisory board. And they know about this? About the sale. They were informed an hour ago. Along with the news that their positions are being terminated. I turned back to him. You fired them. I removed them from positions of power they'd abused. Yes. And the hotel director? The manager who smirked when those women laughed at me. Under review. along with every other person in a leadership position. If they've been treating staff the way they treated you, they won't be here much longer. It should have felt like victory. Like justice. Like everything I deserved 7 years ago. Instead, it felt complicated. Overwhelming. Like standing on the edge of something enormous and not knowing whether it was a cliff or a doorway. I need to think, I said. Take all the time you need. And I need you to understand something. I met his eyes directly. I survived without you. I rebuilt my life without your money or your power or your grand gestures. I'm not the girl who left here 7 years ago. I don't need you to save me. I know. Do you? Because this whole thing, the jet, the announcement, the public spectacle, it feels like you're trying to rewrite history. Like you're trying to turn me into someone you rescued instead of someone who rescued herself. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, you're right. Again. I got so focused on making this moment happen that I didn't think about how it would feel to you. How it might take away your agency even while I was trying to give it back. So what now? Now you decide. The job offer is real. Full authority, competitive salary, complete independence in how you run your department. But it's not conditional on anything. Not on forgiving me. Not on us trying again. Not on pretending the past didn't happen. And if I say no? Then you walk away with severance pay equivalent to 7 years of salary. Plus a reference letter that will get you a position anywhere in this industry. Plus my genuine wish for your happiness, even if that happiness doesn't include me. I studied his face, looking for manipulation, for ulterior motives, for the calculation I knew had to be there because no one became a billionaire without learning to calculate. But all I saw was a man who'd spent 7 years carrying the weight of the worst decision he'd ever made. I'll think about it, I said finally. That's all I'm asking. I moved toward the door, then paused. Robert. Yeah. For what it's worth, I believe that you searched for me. I believe you wanted to fix it. But wanting isn't the same as doing, and doing it 7 years later isn't the same as doing it when it mattered. His expression cracked completely. I know. But maybe, I surprised myself by saying it. Maybe it's not too late to figure out what doing the right thing looks like now. Is that hope or a warning? Both, I said. And walked out, leaving him standing in that expensive suite with his billions and his guilt and his grand gestures. I had a lot to think about. And for the first time in 7 years, I had the power to make my own choices without worrying about who they might offend or what they might cost. Robert was right about one thing. He'd bought me freedom. Now I had to figure out what to do with it. The story broke within an hour. Billionaire buys hotel for ex-waitress in dramatic public gesture. Robert Bailey's shocking confession, I bought it for her. From server to director, the Cinderella story that has everyone talking. My phone exploded with notifications. Text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Friend requests from strangers. News outlets requesting interviews. The video of Robert's announcement had gone viral, 10 million views and climbing. I sat in my apartment that night, still wearing my uniform, watching my life become a narrative controlled by people who'd never met me. The comments section was a war zone. This is what happens when you don't give up on love, Red Heart. He's clearly just trying to buy his way out of guilt. Pathetic. She probably planned this whole thing. Gold digger vibes. Finally a man who makes a real grand gesture. Imagine being so entitled you think you deserve a hotel for getting fired. Every opinion. Every interpretation. Every judgment from people who knew nothing about me, about us, about what had actually happened in that parking garage 7 years ago. I'd become a symbol. Not a person, a symbol. Of romantic redemption or calculated manipulation. Of Cinderella dreams or opportunistic scheming. Of female empowerment or male savior complexes. Everyone had an opinion about what my story meant. No one asked what I actually felt. The morning shows picked it up by dawn. Joining us now is relationship expert Dr. Miranda Chun to discuss this viral moment. Dr. Chun, what do you make of Robert Bailey's grand gesture? Well, it's certainly romantic on the surface, but we have to question the power dynamics here. I turned off the TV. Couldn't watch strangers dissect my life like it was a case study. Maria called at 6 a.m. Don't read the comments. Too late. Honey, Half of them are jealous, and the other half are projecting their own issues onto your story. None of them matter. They're calling me a gold digger, Maria. They're saying I manipulated him. That I'm not qualified for the position. That I'm only getting it because we slept together 7 years ago. And the other half are calling you a hero. A survivor. An inspiration. You can't control the narrative, Patricia. You can only control what you do next. But that was the problem. I didn't know what to do next. By day 3, the speculation had reached fever pitch. Photos of me leaving my apartment made tabloid front pages. Someone had dug up my social media from college. Pictures of me young and hopeful, before the Royal Imperial, before Robert, before everything broke. Before she was famous. Patricia Elliott's humble beginnings. Humble beginnings. Like my life before this moment was just prologue. Like nothing I'd done in 7 years mattered except that Robert Bailey had decided I mattered. The doubts crept in like poison. What if they were right? What if I wasn't qualified? What if the only reason I was being offered this position was guilt, or nostalgia, or some billionaire's midlife crisis masquerading as redemption? I'd spent 7 years building competence, building credentials, building a career brick by brick. And in one viral moment, all of that was erased. Reduced to, the woman Robert Bailey bought a hotel for. Not, the woman who rebuilt herself. Not, the hospitality professional with 7 years of experience. Just, his ex. His grand gesture. His redemption project. I felt myself shrinking again. Becoming small. Doubting everything I'd worked so hard to believe about myself. On day 4, Robert showed up at my apartment. I almost didn't answer. But he knocked again, persistent, and finally I opened the door. He looked terrible. Exhausted. His suit was wrinkled. I'd never seen him in a wrinkled suit. His hair was disheveled. His eyes were shadowed. Have you been sleeping? I asked before I could stop myself. Have you? He gestured at my laptop, still open to a news article about us. Can I come in? I should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries. But I stepped aside and let him in. I know what they're saying, he said without preamble. I've seen the comments. The speculation. The theories about gold diggers and manipulation and... Stop. I held up a hand. Why are you here, Robert? Because you're not answering my calls. I needed space. I know. But I also know what you're thinking right now. What you're doubting. You don't know. You're wondering if you deserve this. If you're qualified. If the only reason you're being offered this position is because of me, because of us, because of guilt. His eyes were intense. And you're thinking about turning it down because accepting it would mean accepting that maybe they're right. That maybe you're only valuable because a billionaire decided you were. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. Get out. Patricia. Get out. You don't get to show up here and psychoanalyze me. You don't get to tell me what I'm thinking or feeling or doubting. You did this, Robert. You created this mess. You turned my life into a spectacle, and now you're surprised that I'm struggling with it. I'm not surprised. I'm devastated. His voice cracked. Because I'm watching you doubt yourself the same way you did 7 years ago, and I can't watch you do that again. Then stop watching. Stop trying to save me. Stop making me your redemption project. You're not my redemption project. He was shouting now too, both of us finally breaking. You're the person I destroyed, and I can't fix that, but I can at least give you back what you earned. I don't want what I earned 7 years ago. I want what I've earned now. I want to be valued for who I am today, not who I was then. Then take the job and prove it. He stepped closer, desperate. Take the job and show everyone, show yourself, that you deserve it. Not because of me. Because of you. How? How do I prove that when the entire world thinks I'm only there because you put me there? The same way you've proven everything else. By being so damn good at it that no one can deny your competence. By building something so excellent that the narrative shifts from Billionaire's ex to the woman who transformed the Royal Imperial. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. But the doubts were so loud. Let me tell you a story, Robert said, his voice softer now. About the night you left. I sank onto my couch, exhausted. He sat across from me, maintaining distance. After you drove away, I went back to the board. Told them they'd had no right to fire you. That you were the best employee we had. That I wouldn't accept the promotion if they didn't reinstate you. They said no. They said if I pushed it, they'd make sure you were blacklisted from every major hotel chain in the region. That they'd spread rumors about professional misconduct. That they'd destroy any chance you had at a career in this industry. I went cold. What? So I made a choice. I took the promotion. I let them think they'd won. And I spent every single day after that building enough power that they could never threaten anyone like that again. He leaned forward, hands clasped. Every hotel I bought, I fired executives who treated staff like disposable resources. Every company I acquired, I implemented fair wage policies and advancement opportunities. Every billion I earned, I invested in changing this industry from the inside. You didn't do that for me. I did it because of you. Because you showed me what this industry looked like from the bottom. Because you made me see that power without accountability is just cruelty with better furniture. Tears were streaming down my face now. Stop it. I can't. Because you need to understand something. This isn't guilt, Patricia. This isn't a grand gesture to make myself feel better about my mistakes. Then what is it? It's love. His voice broke completely. It's 7 years of loving someone I destroyed. It's building an empire and realizing every achievement felt empty because you weren't there to share it. It's reading about your certifications. Yes, I followed your career. I found you 2 years ago, but I wasn't ready yet, and being so damn proud I could barely breathe. You found me 2 years ago? I hired someone to track your career. Not to contact you. Just to know you were okay. To know you'd survived. To know that someday when I was ready, I could try to give you what you deserved. I was sobbing now, all the walls I'd built crumbling. You don't owe me your empire, Robert. You owe me the truth. The truth is I never stopped loving you. He was crying too now, tears tracking down his face. The truth is every woman I dated afterward was just a poor substitution for the person I actually wanted. The truth is I measured every success against the knowledge that it meant nothing because I'd become everything I promised I wouldn't, someone who chose power over people. Robert. The truth is I respect you more now than I did then. Because you rebuilt yourself without me. Because you didn't need my redemption or my billions. Because you survived me and became someone stronger than I ever gave you credit for. We sat there in the wreckage of 7 years, both of us broken open, both of us finally honest. I'm scared, I whispered. Of what? That I'll take this job and fail. That I'll prove them right. That I'm not actually good enough, and the only reason I'm there is because you wanted to assuage your guilt. Patricia. He moved to sit beside me, not touching, just close. You've been good enough this entire time. The only person who needs convincing of that is you. How do you know? Because I've spent 7 years watching you from a distance. I've seen your performance reviews from every hotel you've worked at. I've read the letters of recommendation from your managers. I've watched you become everything you always had the potential to be. He finally took my hand, tentative, like I might pull away. You don't need me to make you qualified. You already are. I'm just giving you the platform you've earned but been denied because this industry is broken and unfair and stacked against people like you. People like me. People who care. People who see the humans behind the service. People who want to build something better instead of just perpetuating the same hierarchies that crush everyone beneath them. I looked at our joined hands. His expensive watch. My chipped nail polish from stress picking. If I take this job. When you take this job. If I take this job, I insisted, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't protect me. Don't shield me. Don't use your power to make things easier for me. I need to earn this. Really earn this. Or I'll never believe I deserve it. You already deserve it. Promise me anyway. He studied my face for a long moment. Then nodded. I promise. But you have to promise me something too. What? Stop punishing yourself for dreaming. Stop apologizing for wanting more than you were given. Stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never built for you. I don't know how to do that. Then let me help. Not as your boss. Not as your billionaire ex. Just as the man who's loved you for 7 years and finally has a chance to show you what that actually means. The silence stretched between us, full of possibility and fear and 7 years of unfinished business. Okay, I whispered finally. Okay. Okay, I'll take the job. Okay, I'll let you help. Okay, I'll try to believe I deserve this. I squeezed his hand. But Robert. Yeah. If you hurt me again, no amount of hotels or billions or grand gestures will be enough. Because I survived you once. I won't do it twice. I know. He brought our joined hands to his lips, kissed my knuckles gently. I won't waste this chance. I promise. And for the first time in 7 years, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, some promises were worth keeping. Even when they came 7 years too late. 7 days can change everything. In 7 days, the Royal Imperial Hotel transformed from the place that had broken me into the place I was rebuilding. Not just the building, but the culture, the soul, the very foundation of what it meant to work there. Day 1, I fired the floor manager who'd smirked when they laughed at me. But I've been here 15 years, he protested. And in those 15 years, you've treated staff like they're disposable. That ends today. He left through the same service entrance where I'd once carried my cardboard box. I felt no satisfaction in it, just the quiet resolve of someone who'd learned that kindness without accountability isn't kindness at all. Day 2, I met with every department head. Asked them what wasn't working. What policies crushed morale. What systems prioritized profit over people. They looked at me like it was a trap at first. Like honesty might get them fired. I'm not here to punish you for telling the truth, I said. I'm here to build something better. But I can't do that without knowing what's broken. Slowly, carefully, they started talking. And I listened. Day 3, I promoted Maria to head of service operations. Are you serious? She stared at the offer letter like it might disappear. You've been training new hires and covering for lazy managers for 15 years. You know this place better than anyone. And you've never let this industry make you cruel. That's who I want leading my team. She cried. Then she accepted. Then she got to work. By day 4, the staff started to believe the changes were real. That fair wages weren't a rumor. That advancement opportunities weren't reserved for people who'd gone to the right schools or knew the right people. That their voices actually mattered. Day 5, I declined the CEO title Robert offered. You sure? He asked. You'd be running the entire hotel. I don't want to run it from an office. I want to rebuild it from the inside. Guest relations is where I can make the most difference, where I can make sure no one else gets erased for being inconvenient. He studied me for a moment, then smiled. You're better at this than I am. I know. Day 6, we finalized the rebranding. The hotel would operate under new management principles but keep its name. The Royal Imperial wasn't the problem. The people who'd run it were. And Day 7 was the grand reopening. I stood in front of my closet that morning, staring at 2 options. The black dress Robert's assistant had sent over, designer expensive, the kind of thing that screamed I belong here now. Or the outfit I'd bought myself 6 months ago with money I'd earned, professional, elegant, paid for with my own competence. I chose mine. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the girl who'd been fired. Didn't see the woman who'd been laughed at. I saw someone who'd survived, who'd rebuilt, who'd earned every inch of space she was about to claim. You ready? Keisha asked from my doorway. She'd taken the day off from her nursing shifts to be there. I don't know. Am I? Honey, you were ready 7 years ago. The world just needed time to catch up. The grand reopening was scheduled for 6 p.m., a cocktail reception for investors, press, industry leaders, and selected guests. The marble lobby gleamed with fresh flowers and new lighting. Staff members moved through in updated uniforms, still professional, but more comfortable, more dignified. No more service entrance stigma. No more invisible workers. I arrived early, walking through the space I'd once navigated with a tray balanced on my palm. Now I walked with a tablet in my hand, checking details, greeting staff by name, making sure everyone knew their value wasn't measured by tips or guest satisfaction scores but by their humanity. Ms. Elliot, a young server, couldn't have been more than 20, approached nervously. I just wanted to say thank you for the Education Assistance Program. I'm enrolling in hospitality management next semester because of it. That's wonderful. What's your name? James. James, keep me updated on your progress. And when you're ready for advancement, come find me. We're building career pathways here, not dead ends. He smiled like I'd handed him the world. Maybe I had. The guests arrived at 6. Investors who'd been at the summit, now back to see what the infamous takeover had actually produced. Press who'd covered the viral moment, hungry for the next chapter. Industry leaders curious about what new management principles actually meant in practice. And among them, wearing designer dresses and forced smiles, were Vanessa and her friends. I saw them enter, saw the moment they recognized me, not in a server's uniform but in my own clothes, standing near the entrance with a confidence I'd built myself, wearing an employee badge that read, Patricia Elliott, Director of Guest Relations. They hesitated, whispered to each other. Then, because society demanded it, approached with champagne glasses and calculated expressions. Patricia. Vanessa's smile was tight. Congratulations on your position. Thank you. We wanted to apologize, Auburn Hair said quickly. For last week. We didn't realize, we didn't know. You didn't know I was telling the truth? I kept my voice pleasant, professional. Or you didn't know I'd end up in a position where you'd have to apologize? Silence. It's fine, I continued. You treated me exactly how this industry teaches wealthy guests to treat staff. Like we're scenery. Like our lives and relationships and truths don't matter because we're not important enough to be believed. The blonde shifted uncomfortably. We really are sorry. I'm sure you are. Now that the power dynamic has shifted. I let that sit for a moment. But apologies aren't what matters. What matters is whether you'll treat the next server with more respect. Whether you'll question your assumptions about who deserves to be heard. I gestured around the lobby. Welcome to my hotel. I hope you enjoy your evening. And I hope when you leave, you'll remember that every person serving you tonight has dreams and dignity and stories you haven't bothered to ask about. They nodded, chastened, and moved away. Maria appeared at my elbow. That was diplomatic as hell. I'm learning to lead, not just to survive. Looks good on you. At 7, Robert arrived. He deliberately stayed away from the early setup, his idea, not mine. This is your moment, he'd said. I'll be there to support you, but I won't overshadow you. Now he stood at the entrance in his tailored suit, and I watched the room's energy shift. The billionaire had arrived. Cameras turned. Conversations paused. But he didn't move to the center. Didn't command attention. He walked straight to me, smiled, and said quietly, "You've done something incredible here. We've barely started." I know. That's what makes it incredible. He looked around at the staff moving with newfound confidence, at the guests being served by people who were finally being treated with dignity. You're changing the industry one hotel at a time. That was always the dream, wasn't it? Back when we used to talk about this at midnight over bad coffee. The dream was always you. I just forgot that for a while. Before I could respond, Maria clinked a glass, calling for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. As many of you know, the Royal Imperial Hotel is under new management. I'd like to introduce the woman leading this transformation, Patricia Elliott, our Director of Guest Relations. Applause filled the lobby. Cameras flashed. I stepped forward, tablet in hand, professional smile fixed in place. Thank you all for being here. 7 days ago, this hotel made headlines for reasons that had nothing to do with hospitality and everything to do with spectacle. But tonight, I want to talk about what we're actually building here. I looked around the room, making eye contact with staff members, with guests, with the press. The Royal Imperial has always been known for luxury. Beautiful spaces. Impeccable service. But luxury built on the backs of people who aren't treated with dignity isn't luxury. It's exploitation with better furniture. A few uncomfortable laughs. Over the next year, we'll be implementing comprehensive changes. fair wages, clear advancement pathways, education assistance programs, mental health support, and zero tolerance for discrimination, harassment, or any treatment of staff that doesn't recognize their full humanity. More applause, genuine this time. Some of you might think this is idealistic, that it's not sustainable, that profitability and humanity can't coexist. I smiled. I've spent 7 years in this industry learning exactly how to prove you wrong. We're not asking you to lower your standards. We're raising ours. Because excellent service comes from people who are valued, not people who are afraid. And luxury means nothing if it's built on suffering. The room was silent, listening. So welcome to the Royal Imperial Hotel under Elliott Holdings, where excellence and ethics aren't opposites, they're partners. Where the people who make this place run are treated like the professionals they are. Where no one is invisible unless they choose to be. The applause this time was thunderous. I stepped back, letting the sound wash over me, and caught Maria's eye. She was crying, proud and fierce. Keisha was filming from the back, grinning. And Robert stood slightly to the side, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite name. Pride, maybe. Or love. Or the quiet satisfaction of watching someone become everything they'd always had the potential to be. Later, after the speeches and the networking and the photographs, I found myself back in the lobby. Most guests had filtered to the ballroom or the rooftop lounge. The space was quiet except for staff efficiently cleaning up, moving with the kind of relaxed competence that came from not being afraid. Robert found me there, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. "You did it," he said, offering me a glass. "We did it." "No. This was all you." He gestured around. "The policies. The programs. The culture shift. I bought a building. You're changing an industry." I took the champagne, let myself feel the weight of the accomplishment. It's just one hotel. For now. But people are watching. And when they see what's possible, when they see that profitability and humanity can coexist, others will follow. You think so? I know so. Because you've already proven that the old way isn't the only way. That power can be used to build rather than control. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching staff members laugh as they worked, no longer performing invisibility but simply doing jobs they were respected for doing. "Robert," I said finally. "Yeah. Thank you. For the second chance. For the hotel. For letting me rebuild this my way. Thank you for not giving up. On yourself. On the dream. On the possibility that some things are worth the wait." I looked at him, this man who'd broken me and then spent 7 years trying to give me back what I'd built myself. This complicated, flawed human person who'd learned that redemption isn't about grand gestures, but about showing up and doing the work. "I'm still scared sometimes," I admitted. "Of what?" "That I'll wake up and this will all be gone. That it was too easy. That I don't deserve it." "Then let me remind you every day that you do. Not because I gave it to you. Because you earned it. Years before I showed up with my jet and my dramatic announcement." Outside, through the crystal facade, I could see that same jet on the tarmac. Ready to take Robert to his next property, his next deal, his next piece of the empire. But for tonight, he was here. With me. In the place where we both learned what it cost to compromise integrity for ambition. They laughed when the waitress said, "That's my boyfriend," I said softly. Robert smiled. "They're not laughing anymore." 6 months later, the Royal Imperial Hotel had the highest employee retention rate in the region. Staff satisfaction was up 87%. Guest reviews praised not just the service but the genuine warmth of people who actually wanted to be there. 3 former servers had been promoted to management. 2 had completed their degrees through our education program. 1 had opened her own small hotel using knowledge she'd gained from our training initiatives. The model was working. And more importantly, it was spreading. I stood in that marble lobby one morning, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise turn everything golden. The same lobby where I'd once tried to be invisible. Where I'd been laughed at. Where I'd been erased. Now I stood here as myself. Fully. Unapologetically. The girl with the apron and the dream had become the woman who owned the room. Not because a billionaire decided she mattered. But because she decided it herself. And that, I'd learned, was the only validation that ever really counted. They laughed when the waitress said, "That's my boyfriend." They're not laughing anymore. Because I wasn't just telling them about who he was to me. I was telling them about who I was to myself. And no amount of laughter could take that away. The private jet sits on the tarmac in the golden afternoon light, no longer a symbol of power or wealth, but of return. Of justice. Of a promise kept 7 years late but finally fulfilled. Inside the Royal Imperial Hotel, staff members move with dignity. Guests are served with genuine warmth. And in the Director of Guest Relations office, Patricia Elliott reviews advancement proposals for the next quarter. She built this. Not from his billions, but from her belief that people deserve better. And every morning when she walks through those marble doors, she remembers the girl who once left with a cardboard box and returns as the woman who rebuilt herself from nothing. That's the real story. Not the billionaire who bought the hotel, but the woman who refused to stay erased. And that, my beautiful family, is how a woman who was told she didn't belong proved she was the only one who truly did. Patricia built her dignity from nothing. No billionaire, no grand gestures, just 7 years of integrity when the world rewarded her with silence. But it took losing everything to show her what Robert had forgotten. That real power isn't in the corner office or the private jet, it's in refusing to let them make you small, even when they're laughing. She was fired for loving honestly. He spent 7 years building an empire to undo one moment of cowardice. And together, they learned that redemption doesn't erase the past, it just gives you the courage to face it and build something better. So if you've ever been laughed at for dreaming too big, fired for refusing to shrink, or told that people like you don't deserve seats at tables like that, remember this: they didn't laugh because you were wrong. They laughed because your truth threatened their comfortable lies. If this story touched your heart, click subscribe, type "they're not laughing anymore" in the comments, and tell me where you're watching from. Because stories like this, stories of survival, vindication, and the quiet power of never giving up on yourself, are reminders that the people who erase you today might spend tomorrow trying to give back what you already rebuilt. Until next time, this is Mr. Crown Stories, reminding you, your integrity is rarer than gold. Your resilience is stronger than their cruelty. And you are the comeback story they never saw coming. You are seen. You are worthy. And you are the justice this world still needs.